Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kia Simone. I am here to talk about Love and Marriage Huntsville once again, because this episode has really stressed me out. Let's just get right into it. I'm sure you're new to my channel, because my channel is pretty new to me. So, please like, comment, subscribe. I am a poet and author. I enjoy discussing matters of life, love, and relationships. And I will be expanding this channel to include some spoken word content. So like the videos, subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff so you can, get into this. Now let's talk. Okay, so the episode kicks off with Mel doing an African-themed photo shoot with her kids to get new family pictures to put in her new house. The scene with the kids playing Queen on the Throne was super cute. It was really adorable. Destiny comes in and Mel takes a break to talk to Destiny. They sit down to talk and she starts to tell Destiny about the confrontation that she and Martell had at the intervention. And she mentions to Destiny how Martell has a baby on the way. And Destiny says, of course, what everybody is thinking in terms of the confrontation, like, why is it that Martell can manage to tell everyone except Mel that he wants his family? It just doesn't make sense. And then she makes a joke about, well, if he has a baby on the way, all the siblings will have to meet someday. I know Mel gives the appearance of strength. And she got the roll in her neck, but trust and believe she is hurt. That is one of the most hurtful things you can go through as a woman, to know that your man is having a baby with somebody else. So, too soon, Destiny. Moving on. So next, Martell goes to see Dr. Francis to get help with navigating his life falling apart. He and Dr. Francis start talking, and Dr. Francis asks him basically, you've been calling me and then going MIA when I call you back, what's going on? And he tells Dr. Francis, yeah, that's because every time I come in here, you basically rip me a new one. So, And, because accountability ain't really Martell's thing, okay? So Martell starts to talk about the effects of divorce. He feels like he is now at rock bottom and how he cries and he's lost everything. And compared to what he had, he now has nothing. So Dr. Francis asks him what caused the fallout to begin with. Martell sums it up by saying basically neither of them were getting what they needed from the other, which essentially pulled them apart and eventually caused him to go looking for what he needed outside of the marriage. So Dr. Francis goes on to ask him what was it that he needed that he wasn't getting. And Martell basically says he needed more attention, more affection, more sex, more compliments. She just slowed down on everything. He needed more of everything and she was giving less. And what he's really giving a voice to is, and this is not to come against men at all, but he is giving a voice to the fragility of the male ego. Dr. Francis explains to him that, okay, we can acknowledge that your need existed and that your need needed to be filled, but we also can acknowledge that you didn't have to go about filling the need the way you went about filling the need. You didn't have to cheat, okay? What an idea. So Dr. Francis asked him, well, was your wife capable of giving you the things that you wanted? And he says yes. So Dr. Francis poses this question of, well, if she's capable of giving it to you and she does not like you going outside of the marriage to get it, then why would she not give them to you, or in other words, withhold from you? And then, child, they get into this whole analogy about oranges that I'm not even about to try to recall about, well, basically Mel has oranges and you like oranges, but she won't give you her oranges. So you decide to go out and pick oranges off another tree. And he says, yeah. And I started to really like those oranges. So because I started to like those oranges, she tried to show me her oranges were better. And so I tried to leave those oranges alone and go back to my home oranges. But I couldn't stop thinking about those oranges over there because they were just so sweet. It was so good. In the meantime, I fell in love with those oranges. And so everybody is like, well, why you still over there picking those oranges? But they just don't understand. I don't know what in the polyamorous hell Martell is going through. But it was just, as a woman, one of the most uncomfortable things to listen to. Martell uses the orange analogy to basically say that, yeah, I had gotten so used to having two women that I couldn't choose one. And I straight up told my wife that. And he goes on to say that he still to this day does not know what he would have done differently. This is why, especially as women, we have to learn when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. This is why we have to learn to not compete where they don't compare, okay? This is why. Because you going out your way to show this man that you're so much better and that you can compete when in all actuality you're trying to compete with his insatiable appetite and his insecurities. Honey, there's so many issues here, it's not even funny. That's why I'm trying not even to dissect this. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on, but I have to get that part off my chest. All right, thank you. Moving on. Dr. Francis asked Martell if that part of him that needed to be satisfied by these outside oranges is still alive and well. He tells him, yes, it is. Well, how are you taking care of that need? And he says, well, my needs are being met. Okay. And so Dr. Francis says, well, what happens if this girl gets pregnant? Well, you know, if you have sex, you get pregnant, and I'm a grown man, and I know how things go. And Dr. Francis tells him, you know, you should be a politician the way you avoid answering a question. And Martell starts to get snappy. I didn't come here. And you can see he has a moment of realization that you can't really, what you do with everybody else, you ain't gonna really be able to do with Dr. Francis. Okay. So Dr. Francis is like, listen, I hear all of that, but you still haven't answered the question. So he finally breaks down like he is not a grown man that knew what he was doing. Says, well, you know, she is pregnant. And Dr. Francis goes into telling Martell that he's not a bad person for having an outside child, because most people would see him as just hoeing around, but it's not the outside child, or it doesn't make him a bad person. He essentially explains to Martell that there's a difference between who you are and what you do. And you made some bad decisions. However, how you move forward is what determines more of your character. And I agree with that to a degree, but dude, we do have to take accountability for, like, dude, why are you bopping around like that? Like, if we're going to talk about the behavior being symptomatic and not the actual issue, then we do need to get some conversations about what is the actual issue. Because if you hopping around with all these women, if you making outside children, doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. And those behaviors are more symptomatic of a deeper issue. and are cries for help from a deeper issue, then what is that deeper issue? That is what we might need to be exploring. That is what we need to look at. It don't even matter why she was withholding the oranges at this point, because that orange tree has said you no longer have access to it. The questions need to become, what are the issues that exist in me that created the dynamic that got me cut off from my tree? What are the issues in me that caused me to take chances after chances to lose my family? Why was it worth it? And he explains to him this divine responsibility to be a father to all of his children and see that they all have all of their needs met. And he basically gives him what he needs to be empowered to own his situation, own his fatherhood, and not tuck and run again. We're moving on to Tisha and Marcel having their soft opening at Blaque. Martell is on his way, and he gets a call in the truck. And who is on the phone but the infamous side chick, Arionne? They chit-chat. Martell asks her how she's feeling, how's the baby and everything. And she's, I'm okay, a little tired, but I'm okay. He goes into talking about his session with Dr. Francis, about how he was able to be honest about everything. And Arionne asked, did you call me another peasant? And he says, no, I didn't call your ass another peasant. And then he goes on to explain how Dr. Francis made him feel so much better about the situation, about knowing that, he could just handle everything if this baby is his. She's like, well, what do you mean if? You know this baby is yours. What you want, a DNA test? And he's like, well, yeah, I do. She goes, oh my God, I can't believe this is a question. I can't believe. Listen, you cannot be somebody's side chick and then be shocked when they ask you for a DNA test for a baby y'all are having together. What it breaks down to is there is no honor amongst thieves. Y'all do dirt together. He knows what you're capable of. Anybody who will cheat with you will cheat on you. I know how you get down. So, because I know how you've helped me play my wife, let me make sure you don't play me. You can't be shocked when that man, you cannot be shocked when that happens. The fact that she is shocked is what, I can't even believe that this is a question. Oh my God, you and I both know. Martell's like, well, she's been very loyal to me, but we're not around each other 24/7, so I don't know. I just would like to be sure. That sums it all up. I don't care how many years you give this man as a side piece, how loyal you are, how much you are willing to drag his wife and do his dirty work. When it all comes down to it, he gonna let you know that I don't even trust you like that. I trust you to do dirt with you. That's it. Don't be shocked. And then she goes on from there to say, he's like, well, of course, if this baby is mine, I'm going to take care of our child. And she goes on to say, after you just talked about how he called you a peasant on national TV in a therapy session, after he asked for a DNA test, her response at the end of it all is, you've always been good to me. Okay. I just cannot, okay? The standards and the bar are in hell. It's the you've always been good to me for me. Whew. What? What? Somebody else's husband has always been real good to you. After he's called you a peasant and asked for a DNA test. Okay. So Martell arrives at Blaque And Tisha, and Marcel start talking. And they're laughing and talking and carrying on and, just having the best time. I'm like, oh, okay. Marcel brings up that Miss Wanda and Mama Holt are the best of friends as of recently. Martell is like, well, where is Miss Wanda? And Tisha's like, well, I can't have y'all in the same room at the same time. So Martell's like, well, about that, I wanted to apologize. He apologized for running up in Miss Wanda's face because at the end of the day, that's still your mama. Period. And, everybody's like, oh, we're so grateful that you apologized. Like, oh my goodness. Let's take note that Tisha was far quicker to accept an apology from Martell than she was from Mel. And I might also add that Marcel seemed a little bit hesitant. Well, the best apology is changed behavior. He was a little easier with Mel. I'm just saying. So Chris and Nell arrived. They greet everybody, and Martell jokes about, did y'all get to regroup after we done tore up y'all patio, So they go into what happened. And Martell's like, well, listen, I just told my truth. I told my truth, and it went left. And now he did make a point to say, well, if I had gotten out of hand like that and started throwing stuff, then y'all would tell me I was going too far. And Miss Nella's like, well, listen, with the stuff you were saying, the hell with the glasses, I'd have thrown the table. And then here come Tisha. But he said he was being truthful, though. I mean, you got to speak your truth. And Martell's like, well, as a man, we can't speak our truth. Now, I'm going to tell you, I do agree with this to a degree, and it has nothing to do with Martell. That men are not necessarily given room to tell their truth if that truth is going to make a woman uncomfortable. Now, that ain't got nothing to do with whether Martell is right or wrong, but I will say that I agree with the point in general. But Tisha, I think Tisha is such an advocate for him sharing his truth because it's Mel. And because she feels like, well, Mel thinks she got it all together. She thinks she know about everybody else's marriage. She need to be knocked down a peg or two. I think that's why she is so, well, no, you need to tell your truth. And Marcel is like, no, you don't. No. Like, please be quiet because you don't want truths to start going round here, okay? So let's just be quiet and have a good time. So then they show everybody arriving. Destiny arrives. I loved that dress Destiny had on. Oh my God. Girl. Kimmy and Maurice are on their way and they're talking about how excited they are for everybody. Jalen arrives. He's the new GM. And then Mel and her brother Marcus pull up. Mel gives an awkward greeting to Martell. Jalen talks about his first night as a GM. And Kimmy and Maurice are talking about how they are happy that he has finally landed something. So this whole issue they have been having of having family meetings about what Jalen is going to do with his life can stop. So then Tisha pulls Mel aside to talk to Mel and apologize about how the girls' retreat went. She explains to Mel that she takes accountability for how she responded to Mel trying to open up to her. After she expresses everything, Mel asks her, well, what? This is such a big change. What caused this change? She said, well, I just thought about it. And they flash back to the conversation that Tisha had with Marcel. And Mel makes a comment in her confessional about being amused by Tisha coming to her, basically getting at, I know that your husband said something to you, and getting at that your husband came to tell me, okay? Either you want the girl to take accountability for how she is or you don't. Like, you still come across condescending when she's coming to you to try to make it right. and you're saying, well, you're amused by her. It's the same thing as what she just did. The difference is you know how to smile in her face and then say how you really feel behind her back. That's my issue with it. I don't care how you feel about it, but be real and do something with them double standards. That's my whole thing. So then we move on to seeing Jalen do his job. They talk about how he's really growing into the role of the GM. And they go outside to unveil this legacy billboard that has all of the Scott sons on it. So as they're unveiling this billboard, Destiny and Mel start having this little banter about the fact that Marcel's daughters weren't included in this billboard and about the fact that Marcel is sexist. So as Mel is over to the side talking about Marcel and how he's sexist and what criticisms she has for the billboard, her brother goes to pull Martell to the side. They go off to the side and they get to having a conversation about the last interaction that they had at the last public event. Here's my thing. Before this went left, okay? This is the one time, I will give Martell this. This is the one time Martell was minding his own sad business. He was being sad inside by himself, trying to be happy for Marcel and Tisha by himself. And this is the one time he didn't pick a fight, he wasn't causing a scene, and he was minding his own business. Let's start there. Marcus starts to say how he had no intention of being nasty or negative when he came to Martell telling him that his kids asked if he and his husband could be their daddy. Like, he could have saved that lie. I'm sorry. He could have saved that. You did not go up to another man and say, your kids said, hey, will you be my daddy? And not intend to be nasty. Like, you could have saved that lie. He'd have been better off saying, listen, that was probably the wrong approach. What I really intended to explain is how I feel like you and Mel are both affecting the kids, but it came off wrong rather than that lie. Okay. Now he did go into saying that what both of you are doing is hurting the kids, but that's not what you said and that's not what you did. And that's not what you are taking ownership for. So they segue into this conversation about Martell and his comfort or discomfort about his children being around Marcus and his husband. And Martell expresses that he has concerns and reservations about his children being exposed to Marcus and his husband's relationship. Marcus sought to challenge Martell's position on the matter. The issue is exactly what Marcus just finished saying. At the end of the day, Martell is their parent. Different parents parent differently. Let that be worked out between the two parents. But I don't get to impose what I believe is right or what I want to do or, get to strip him of his fatherhood because he failed as a husband. But as they're having this back and forth, Mel comes up. Mel comes up and they talk about what they're discussing and it's like they tag team him. It's like they tap in. You in. It's your turn. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. I just wasn't here for her jumping in that conversation. I just wasn't here for it. It would have been one thing to come in and diffuse it, separate everything, and move on. But to jump in and basically I'm going to pick up where he left off. This just wasn't the time or place for any of these conversations. I noticed that they have a tendency to want to address these very sensitive matters in these public settings. Why? That just wasn't the time or the place. If you really wanted to have a conversation with him, that you wanted to be productive, you could have called him. But this whole always approaching personal family matters at public events is just... And then things went left in typical Holt fashion. It was, well, you messed the family up. Well, no, you messed the family up too. And they finally stop, and Martell literally starts to speak with sense and says how they're both hurt. This always how they both, you know, they tend to blow up when they run into each other, and they're both hurt, but they have to find some sort of a middle ground for the sake of raising their children. He starts to express how he feels about wishing that all of this had never happened, that he never intended to break up their family. So Mel hears him out, and she, you know, says that all sounds good, but the truth is that you didn't value me, our marriage, or anything that we built. Not only did you not value me, you further degraded me by creating a relationship outside of our marriage, and then are now having a baby by this person who has become my enemy. Martell is like, well, you know, you're right. Martell says, I understand, but we have to move forward peacefully. And she rebuts to say, well, you're saying we should be peaceful, but that's not what you've been giving. He says, no, we haven't been. He goes on to say, I'm no longer going to accept you saying that I am the sole cause of everything falling apart. And she said, well, whose fault is it if it's not your fault? And Martell says, you know, I'm not going to point fingers because I'm tired of doing that. That's when you really should have left the conversation alone. When you have a person that is typically just goes off the deep end, that's telling you, listen, I ain't trying to swim off the deep end today, please end that conversation right there. They go from this moment of making sense to back to they just are in this cycle of arguing. Mel says, well, I want to be peaceful, but it's just difficult with you. And he says, well, I could say the same about you. And he's like, well, you're trying to make the whole world think it was all Martell. And she keeps going, but it was. And you're pushing him back around to pointing the finger. When you are dealing with somebody who you know has the propensity to throw daggers from their mouth, the best thing you can do is leave them alone. It ain't no need to go trying to get your lick back in an argument because they done said some stuff that really, really, really upsets you. Because they got more where that came from. Like, I wish they would have just left this conversation alone. I really do. Because I can only imagine what it felt like when she says to him, well, you know, this is your fault because I never would have left you had you not been doing what you were doing. And he says, yeah, but I would have left you. I'll be back. I'll be under the damn desk. I can't even imagine what it must have felt like for that man to sit in her face and say, yeah, you might not have ever left me if I hadn't stepped out, but I was going to leave you. That's why you got to leave these conversations. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. When somebody shows you they have absolutely no problem saying any uncouth thing to your face, leave them alone. Leave them alone. You cannot out-insult them. You cannot out-crazy them. You cannot out-disrespect them because they are here for it, okay? They specialize in it. I wish they would have left this conversation alone. So I don't know at what point they start talking about signing the divorce papers, but at some point in their conversation, they go into he needs to sign the papers. He's claiming I've been trying to sign the papers. She's saying, no, you ain't, because you don't want no divorce. You was just saying 4 weeks ago you want me to be your woman again. And he says, yeah, I only wanted us to get back together for the kids. Lord. So then she goes into, yeah, that might work for your hookers out there, but that don't work for me. Okay, so Martell decides he's done with the conversation, and then the ladies come around her to comfort her and talk about, you know, this exchange that they just had. Destiny says, you know, Martell is my boy, but he just said some stupid stuff. I don't know what's wrong with him. And Tisha, see, this is why you got to be real careful about who you involve in your going through it. Because Tisha was like, oh, he's just trying to make you seem like a whole slut out here, huh? Well, he called me a hoe. Oh, he do have, so he got a baby on the way for real, for real. Oh, Of all the sentiments expressed, Kimmy is the voice of reason. You know, because Mel is making these comments about how my kids love me and we have a great time together and she wishes she could just take her kids and leave and yada, yada, yada. And Kimmy is saying, well, you know, that makes me sad. And I'll be happy when everybody is in a good place and you don't have to feel like that. And Mel is like, well, you know, Martell isn't going to change. So, and the thing about it is she was talking about the both of y'all. She pulls it together. They rally back together. They go in, they take some pictures, and we get to the end of the scene. That is where this episode ends. I am so grateful that this is almost over. Like, you don't even know, because they are stressing me out. So, I'm real grateful for you coming through, listening, hearing me out, letting me get this off my chest for real. I'll be getting into some spoken word content soon, so look for that. Please make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.